Had this Confederate battle flag prevailed in war 150 years ago, I would not be standing here today as a member of the United States Congress. I would be here as a slave. Over the last 150 years, we've made tremendous progress in this country, but we still have a long way to go. As the tragic events in Charleston, South Carolina illustrated, when 9 God-fearing, church-going African-American citizens were killed by a white supremacist, there is much work that needs to be done to eradicate the cancer of racial hatred. When Dylann Roof committed this act of domestic terror, his emblem was the Confederate battle flag. Later on today, we're going to have a vote on the legitimacy of this flag. On Tuesday, it appeared that House Republicans were prepared to do the right thing in support of 3 amendments to prohibit the use of federal funds for the purchase, sale, or display of the Confederate battle flag on National Park Service land. But less than 24 hours later, House Republicans reversed course in the dead of night, under cover of darkness, to introduce an amendment supporting the Confederate battle flag, which is nothing more than a symbol of racial hatred and oppression. There are some in this House who have made the argument that the Confederate battle flag is about heritage and tradition. I'm perplexed. What exactly is the tradition of the Confederate battle flag that we're supporting? Is it slavery, rape, kidnap, treason, genocide, or all of the above? The Confederate battle flag is nothing more than a symbol of racial hatred and oppression. And as I stand here with chills next to it, because the red in this flag is a painful reminder of the blood that was shed by Africans who were killed when attempted to be kidnapped and thrown into the institution of slavery. The red on this flag is a painful reminder of the blood that was shed by millions of Africans who died during the Middle Passage when being transported from Africa to America. The red on this flag is a painful reminder of the blood that was shed by African American slaves who were beaten, raped, lynched, and killed here in America as a result of the institution of slavery. What exactly is the tradition the Confederate battle flag represents? We were sent here.
Welcome to the GILCHRIST experience. That's Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat from Graham's district, I believe, right?
Yep.
And also the nephew of Dr. Leonard Jeffries. So Dr. Jeffries was on schedule to be today, but in place we have Mr. Gonzalez, activist, used to be an activist at NAN quite often. I used to see him all the time. But he's an associate of Graham's out in Brooklyn. He deserves to here in Manhattan, but he's here today. I wanted to talk quickly a little bit about this Confederate flag and all the hoopla, and actually the Dylann, what was Dylan's last?
Dylan Roof.
Dylan
Roof.
Ruth. All this Confederate flag waving and all this other stuff, and murdering 9 people in a church. So that's what it took to get the Confederate flag taken down, and as Hakeem eloquently, as he so expressed, all of our sentiments about this flag. It's so important that we follow up with all the other stuff that's undone about voter registration and all the other many things that have been shortchanged. Give us a little take on what you think about the flag and what's happened.
I think very clearly the Confederate flag is the symbol of white supremacy.
Right.
It's the symbol of an era in American history when white men had superior rights to every other people, including white women.
Right.
And they had a dominant force over black people who they were enabled to slave and required to work for free. And that extended for many, many decades. And it symbolizes a period that American geopolitics stood for the proposition that white men had power and nobody could challenge them and anything for that. That flag is very narrow in that focus. There are many white Americans today who do not wave that flag, do not grab the precept that white people are somehow better than black people, or white people have the right to control black people, so they do not carry or wave or support the Confederate flag. And that's essentially what that flag has come to symbolize. It's only carried by a very small number of people who want to believe that they have some superior rights over other human beings.
Graham?
I was
Malcolm?
thinking about 1974, Atlanta, Georgia. I had had a meeting with Martin Luther King's parents at Ebenezer, and it was Easter time. And I went into a store downtown, I think it was Dillard's in downtown Atlanta. And I was online waiting to purchase an item. There were about 5 people ahead of me. And a white woman walked up and went right to the cashier. And I'm looking at this, okay. 1974, Martin Luther King's been dead for 6 years. And I shouted out, I said, excuse me, miss, you, the white lady, miss. She turned and I said, yeah, you. Why don't you get on the back of the line? She says, excuse me. I said, I speak fluent English. Get on the back of the line. You can get in front of any Negro you see here except me, which means you get on the back of the line, all right? Then I looked at the cashier. I said, and if you ring up her item, I'm gonna wring your neck. All right, Martin is dead. You all still letting this stuff go on down here? Are you kidding me? So I said, it's about time, never your way out of here. And she walked out of the store. And I had to ask the people. I said, what is going on in your heads that you're still allowing this to go on? And you don't have the self-respect to stand up for yourself, even at a checkout counter in a major department store in downtown Atlanta. There will always be people that feel that they have privilege and rights over and against everybody else. We've seen it, it's been expressed by the U.S. government over and against people in the Middle East. It's been expressed against the people of Panama. It's been expressed against the people of Puerto Rico. It's been expressed against people all around the world who are non-white. So we can't expect people not to carry that mindset when the government has portrayed it for so many years and is still portraying that mindset. So, you know, it's something that is not a local issue, it's not a South Carolina issue, it's a national issue. And we've talked about Cuba for many years and going to Cuba.
Yeah.
But I've always enjoyed the notion of Fidel Castro outliving all of these presidents, because what he did for Cuba was not only run out the mafia and political organized crime, but he let the Cubans know who they were. We're not light-skinned Cubans and dark-skinned Cubans and white Cubans. He said we're Cubanos. And he put an end to that classism and that color code that the U.S. brought into Cuba and takes around the world wherever they go.
Well, what I see is this whole killing, to me, is a sign from God that we have to get back to our roots. You know, what actually got us this far. I mean, this is the whole symbolism of a demon walking into the Church of God.
Yeah.
And after sitting there 45 minutes, hearing the word.
Yeah.
From, you know, when you go to Wednesday, Bible study, you're getting the best of the best. You're getting the people who really want to get into the Word. So these are our dedicated Christians.
Yes, sir.
All right. So I see it as a word from God on how we are treating people. Or if you claim to be a Christian, this is a real Christian. Somebody that could actually forgive someone. I mean, this is our Christian doctrine, to forgive those who abuse us. And I was just watching a piece with Frederick Douglass, and John Brown coming to him, asking him to join him in the ferry thing, and grab the guns and release all the slaves and go out on a rampage. And Douglass said, "You're out of your mind." But Brown was so determined to do this that he sacrificed himself and 5 of his sons for this cause. Because Kansas was supposed to have been the edge of going slave state, which the entire nation was supposed to have gone slave state at the time. But when you look at, what am I talking about?
You were talking about John Brown.
No, I was talking about John
Were you
Brown.
talking about Roof?
And
Racism and discrimination.
well, Frederick Douglass, I was talking about.
Frederick.
Boy, am I getting slow. Anyway, Frederick Douglass was actually the master's son. All right? His mother was abused, and I mean, he should have been the most angry. You see most black people today that are angry. They're talking about white racism and what the white man has done. And you see that we're the people that actually have the love energy that can save the planet. You see Obama coming in, peaceful, and taking all this guff from the racist Southerners who are actually doing this last meeting of the Congress. They try to get Texas and 4 other southern states to display the flag and with federal monies on federal properties. And this was turned down, but they sort of brought this in the middle of the night. So I'm trying to get at, this flag means so much hatred. I mean, they're pushing hatred. Well, and with a black president. This is when it really comes out, when we get a black president. All the racism really comes out, full blown. Anything Obama says, they're against. Anything he says. From Obamacare to this nuclear agreement they had today. I watched and Obama is so sharp, he wouldn't be where he is if he wasn't on top of his game. But black people don't give him the credit of being where he is, the achievement. Black people are saying, what has he done for us? He, as a black man, has achieved the ultimate. Here in America, he's proving that democracy can work. That we have to just get our act together. And all this Confederate just showing us how hateful and demonic this country really is. And we have to change it as black people.
One of the things that you want to keep in mind is the Confederate flag stood for the proposition that white men can own black people and force black people to work for free. that had an immediate tangible benefit to the economic standing of black people, of white people in America, because it allowed them to grow great farms, establish very great businesses, because they didn't have to pay for the labor.
Exactly.
So one of the things that becomes important when you discuss racism, you have to discuss its intersection with economic issues. If I'm white and I own a human being who happens to be black, and I can compel that black person to work on my farm where I might otherwise have to pay them a salary and perhaps medical benefits, I now have to pay them nothing. So I benefit from getting the fruit of their labor. In the case of the United States, that went on for decades. And so for many years, for centuries, many years, white people were enabled to build great kingdoms of economic corporations, and they had substantial economic foundations based on free labor, which they would not have gotten if they were required to pay black people for their labor. The second thing I want to point out is that the role of women in the whole racial / economic question. Black people got the right to vote about 1870, thereabout. White women, which were treated, all women, but white women in particular, were treated less than black men. Black men got the right to vote by constitutional requirement 1870. Women did not get the right to vote for an additional 50 years later. Women got the right to vote in 1920. So it's very ironic in this country that black people, black men, had the right to vote for a full 50 years before white women got that. White women were also treated as property. White men could beat their wives, could compel them to work, didn't have to pay them anything, kind of like black people. So white men were able to build very large economic fiefdoms based on the free labor of white women and of black men. Very important to understand that. So to the extent that many black people are asking to be paid equal pay for what their white counterparts are working for today, waving the Confederate flag begins to create a precept that, no, I don't have to pay you what you're asking for, which is equal wage, because if we go back to the mindset of the Confederate flag, you're property, and then I can make far more money because you're working for me for free. I don't have to pay you a salary. That is what the Confederate flag also stands for. Racial hate for human beings, but also the economic question of being able to compel them to work for nothing.
Did you update that to what's happening today,
Yeah,
Graham,
I
with
was
the
thinking of
corporation?
Walmart, and we have to remember what the judiciary has ruled. The judiciary has ruled that corporations are persons, they're individuals. This is how sick this whole system is, because they're giving legal license to the barons of the empire.
Right.
All right, you had the serfdom in Europe, you had serfdom.
Right.
You had nobility and serfs and the peasants. You have the same thing here, they just use different names. So a company like Walmart, which has been abusing their workers for many years, violating people's rights. Then you take a group like the Koch brothers, who finance a lot of political agendas and even promote redistricting schools to bring back segregation as they did in North Carolina about 10 years ago. It was all prompted by the Koch brothers. So when you have the judiciary saying that corporations now are individuals and they are a contributing factor to the political process, you're going back to the point where now the rich and the wealthy will control the entire political dynamics of this country. Not just corporations in this country, but corporations outside of the country. So now we have the influence of any individual from any country who can pay and contribute to bringing into the position of the presidency of the United States a person who will answer their call. And it's all because of money. And we really, the people in this country really need to take a look at where they are. They're not where they think they are. The Supreme Court has failed this country miserably in the last few years. And if we don't get out, and I've been saying this for years, if people
Vote.
don't vote,
Yeah, there you go.
if they don't vote to stop this paradigm, they're going to find themselves on more than the short end of the stick.
Right.
And if you don't vote, you don't have a right to complain.
All right. Well, that was what I was leading to, was the importance of voting. I'm going to play, we continue on that piece? I want to play the latter part of it. It's only another minute and a half, I think. Can you play the latter part of that piece there with Akeem?
Our painful history and the legacy of slavery. We have an opportunity today to make a definitive statement, to be leaders, not individuals who cower in fear of some narrow-minded Americans who aren't aware that the South lost the war 150 years ago. Let's choose racial progress over racial poison. Let's choose harmony over historic amnesia. Let's choose togetherness over treason. Let's come together, not as Democrats or Republicans, not as whites or blacks, not as Northerners or Southerners. Let's come together as Americans and vote down the Calvert Amendment and relegate the Confederate battle flag to the dustbin of history, which is where it belongs.
Amen. All right.
Reason.
Now there's a Brooklynite. Brooklyn in the house.
Yes, it is. Brooklyn is in the house.
And plus Leonard Jeffries' nephew.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is our cause. I mean, American. I mean, when are we going to get away from, you know, black, white? I mean, we know what the deal is. We understand our history. I mean, a lot of adult blacks understand their history. And stop blaming yourself for being black and why you can't get ahead. You have to get a good education. You have to if the jobs come out there, what can you do to get a job? What can you, what do you...
Speak about the jobs in construction. So.
You know, I think basically many white people don't necessarily hate somebody because they're black as much as they understand that there's a tangible benefit to being white and being part of the legacy of white racism in America,
right,
which steers jobs and economic opportunity to people for no other reason than they are white.
Right.
And that brings us up to today in New York City. There are upwards of 15 separate multi-billion-dollar construction projects taking place as this interview is rolling, that are probably 95% or more all white, from the construction worker on the ground to the construction executive in the top office.
What's about today?
In New York City.
In New York City.
Yes. One of them is East Side Access. That is, with public money, the MTA, which is the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, to the tune of $8 billion, is drilling a hole from Queens through the East River into Manhattan to shave off approximately a 30-minute off the commute from trains that come into New York City from Long Island. So essentially, many of these trains come through Brooklyn, into Manhattan, and then they end at Penn Station. This tunnel that is being built as we're speaking to the tune of $8 billion, but it may end up with overcost going much higher, would drill a tunnel from Penn Station all the way through to Grand Central Station. Instantly, if you're someone who comes into Manhattan from Long Island, you have to get off the Long Island Railroad at Penn Station and take the New York City subway over to Grand Central Station. This program, this multi-billion-dollar construction program, which is called East Side Access, continues the Long Island Railroad from Penn Station through Manhattan Underground to Grand Central Station. So you'll save maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes off your commute. $8 billion to save someone a 30-minute commute? I question the entire program.
So what was this program conceived?
This was conceived by white corporate executives, and to the tune of $8 billion got the MTA to front that money to drill the hole in the ground and give the jobs to who they choose to be. That entire East Side program is virtually 95% or better whites at every phase of it.
Well, that's
$8 billion
that's the
in a
mayor's
city I mind you, in a city where Latinos and blacks number about 60% of the population, 5% or fewer of those jobs on that construction project alone are going to people who are Latino or black. But it's far worse than that. We're talking well over 15 different separate construction projects. Willets Point, in the area...
I misunderstood
Yes.
something. You go back to...
Each of these construction plans that are ongoing as I speak are in the multi-billion-dollar stratosphere. So we're talking $5 billion, some of them as much as 10, 12, 15 billion dollars.
Okay.
So the billions of dollars goes for construction workers' salary, dig holes in the ground, for the supplies, for the lawyers, the accountants. Everyone is making money off of these various construction programs. 15 separate construction projects, each of which is a multi-billion-dollar project.
So it was under Bloomberg or
Essentially,
Giuliani?
these programs were chosen over the last 12 years. Former Mayor Michael Bloomberg set into motion the creation of these 15 separate multi-billion-dollar construction projects.
So knowing about them now, is there anything we can do about it?
No.
The short answer is no, because many of those projects are signed, sealed, and have been delivered and are ongoing as we speak.
Okay.
However, there are some things we could do. First of all, we need to educate ourselves as to how those construction projects will put into place. What is the political structure for establishing the plan that takes public money, hands it over to private corporations so they can build it? Most people don't know that.
That's 12 years of Bloomberg.
That's 12 years of Mayor Bloomberg.
And 8 years of Giuliani.
And 8 years before
That's
that.
20 years
of Republican mayors.
Yeah.
Now, that's the short answer. The long answer is many elected officials, including black and Latino elected officials, supported Bloomberg getting a third term in office and supported by approval these construction programs. So many of the Latino and black elected officials have blood in their hands.
We could have won that third election if we had went out and voted. That's what we're talking about. If blacks had came out and voted for, who was running then?
Billy Thompson was running against
but he
Mayor
didn't have enough
Bloomberg. He lost
charisma?
by maybe 50,000 votes.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
So your point about the failure to vote is absolutely is correct. So the question has to be asked, why all these construction projects? Now, to the larger point as to whether these construction programs can be retrofitted to get more Latinos and blacks in, I believe the answer is yes. These construction plans, they're drawn over a period of 5 years, some of them or longer, and each year they have a certain amount of money that is funded for that year's construction project. Elected officials, if they grew the internal courage to stand up, they could immediately stop this year's
So why can't we go to the controller and protest about this?
You know, it's interesting. Scott Stringer, who just signed a deal with the Garner family, saw him Sunday. He was at my church. He was talking about settling all these cases. These monies are not just city monies. These are federal monies for infrastructure.
Yes, state funds as well.
Oh, really?
So you have to meet the guidelines in terms of your hiring practices. And this is what Joe is talking about, and it needs to be examined. It needs to be examined by the city council, which has consistently failed to really police the city and the city agencies. From the police department out. They failed to do it for too many years. They failed to exercise the authority and the control that they are given by law. So you're in a city that's 60% people of color. You have labor unions where the membership is predominantly comprised of men who don't even live in the city.
That's true.
My brother-in-law was a plumber. And he was working on a site, and a white guy didn't like the fact that he was black working on the site. It got to the point where this guy attacked my brother-in-law. Now he's just going to work. He's not going to work to fight with somebody. He's going to work, pay his bills, take care of his children. But he wound up, this guy was arrested. He was arrested, but my brother-in-law is no longer in the plumbing trade. Right? Because of the aggravation that goes on inside these unions. When 9/11 occurred, they needed welders down at Ground Zero. The son of a well-known historical figure in this city went down to work to cut steel. They told him, "We don't want you here. We take care of our own." And he's black, and they told him they weren't giving him a job. Licensed welder. But it was good that he wasn't, because he didn't need to be down there getting cancer.
Right.
You know, he didn't need to be down there.
Right,
But this was a labor union telling him they were taking care of their own. Who are your own other than the people paying the dues? So all of this has to be examined. All the labor unions have to be examined, and the people that are paying their dues really need to consider confronting some of their unions with the bias that's going on inside the labor unions. Men in Brooklyn, they just opened the King's Theater on Flatbush Avenue, refurbished it. I was there a couple months ago, see the OJs. I was talking with a fella
One question about this. Now, if suddenly there are jobs opening up for black people, how many qualified black people do we have out there ready to get these jobs?
There are qualified black men in the construction trades, from not just flagmen. You see, that's $10, $15 an hour to stand there with the flag.
Right.
There's no
Waving
money.
the flag.
Right?
Okay.
I have a friend, he's an engineer.
That's all you see is, as far as black people are concerned.
You know, you'll see one or two guys on the site, whether it's setting up the rebar for the concrete, the guys delivering the concrete. I have a friend who's an engineer who operates the elevator, that hoist up and down on the site. Those guys make $3 grand a week. All right, something like that. So, and he told me, Reggie told me, he said, they don't even like the fact that I'm there. Because the idea of a black man making that kind of money, and that man controls that project. You can't get to the floor you need to work on unless he takes you up. You can't get your materials up. So that engineer operating that elevator on the outside of that building is a pivotal piece in that job, and he holds a lot of power. There is an organization of black engineers, all right? And I've talked with some of them over the years, but these are the things, the electricians, the plumbers, the carpenters, the painters, the plasterers.
The black people are ready to take these jobs?
Well, the short answer is there are blacks available, but the larger question is that many of those jobs require a certain amount of training for the position, and there are just as many whites who were unqualified for the position but got the job because there were training classes set into place. So really the larger question is, if someone was of a mind that they wanted a certain constituency to get the job, you would announce it, advertise in newspapers and in the medium that day, and set training programs into place. So when you look, if there was maybe 50 whites on a job site, maybe 30 or 40 of them got there not because they previously worked to develop experience, but because they were pulled into apprentice training classes and got that training. So no one was able to throw it at them, well, you don't have any training. You haven't got the experience to get this job, because the system is designed to bring people in who look like them and of a mindset because of that superiority notion that we're better than other people, and there's a sense of entitlement.
If Stringer comes out and says a certain percentage of these jobs are allotted to minorities, is there a minority contractor that can fulfill this
There are
this need?
There are architects. There are contractors that handle major projects.
Do you know of yourself?
McKissick Architectural and Construction Firm. They have built portions of JFK.
Okay.
They've built baseball stadiums.
These are black-owned construction companies.
And there are more than that across the country.
So what we need to do is go to the federal government and have them sort of nurture these black businesses to open up training programs for all people.
That's true to the extent that some of that money is federal funds.
Right.
But I've come to argue over the years that the quickest way to give jobs to black people, to give jobs to Latino people, is to go very forcefully to the mayor of New York City, Bill de Blasio, and not ask, but demand that he reinstitute what existed in New York City for 100 years, and that was a residency rule.
law.
Residency rule, at its core, Residency says that you can work in this city if you live in this city.
Right.
You get public money, public jobs if you live here. In fact, the United States Supreme Court ruled in 1973 that a municipality has an absolute right to protect its economy by compelling public money to be spent in that city. That came out of a case in Philadelphia where a Philadelphia firefighter left Philadelphia and moved into South Jersey.
Okay.
It was ascertained that he no longer lived in Philadelphia and he was fired. Philadelphia took the view that if we give you a check, you will take that check and you will spend it in local stores. Everything from a loaf of bread to your heating bill, everything is paid for. So it goes in the economy. The local store pays taxes, so the money circulates within the city of Philadelphia. As a result of that, hundreds, perhaps thousands of cities all over the United States have instituted residency rules to protect their economy. So if I were
why hasn't somebody in the city council thought of something like that?
We had it years ago.
There wasn't.
It was challenged. The PBA challenged it years ago. You had to be a city resident to be a police officer.
Right.
So what they do, see, you got to remember, labor unions have people that work for them up in Albany, and they sit with the legislators to change law. These individuals are upstate all year while they're in session and going around having dinner and hobnobbing with the folks, playing golf with them, and say, you know, my constituents, my union, we've got 34,000 cops in New York, blah, blah, blah. We've got X number of firefighters, this and that. Now, you represent these districts. And this is what our people want. They want, now it's interesting that they're speaking to a representative of that district about their people who want to leave that district and go to Long Island or go to Rockland or Dutchess County. So why would you even care about them if they're looking to leave the district? So they allowed for the police officers and firefighters and other municipal workers to vacate New York City. Those dollars, as Joe said, they go out to Nassau and Suffolk County, they go up to Westchester, Dutchess, Rockland County, and those dollars are spent there. They're not spent in New York. So what the PBA did, when they finally got that ruling from the state legislature, the PBA president changed his address the next day. Not that he moved overnight. He already had the residence. He already bought a house. So he was in violation of city law at the time. I had a sergeant years ago. We got into a confrontation in the command because he wanted to grandstand for these young rookies. So I had to check him. See, as a detective, my job is knowing your business, whether you're a police officer or not. So you want to mess with me, I'll go to dozens with you. And I went back in front of the desk in front of these young rookies. I said, well, Sarge, this is what we're going to do. Since you're the sergeant and I'm the detective, you're going to put your papers in Friday. Because you know the house you have in New Jersey with the family name and the reindeer in the bucket and his eyes open up wide. I said, yeah, you're in violation of state law. You can't reside in New Jersey and work on this job.
Wow.
So you're going to put your papers in. You have 20 years. Put your papers in by Friday or I'll have your job. So much for your strikes. All right? And
touche.
This rookie was like, how did you know? I said, it's my business to know everybody's business in this place. But if you really want to play with me, I'll play with you. And I'm going to take you to the wall. So that was the end of his tenure.
I like this idea of doing something about
residency. Let me elaborate on one other thing with respect to residency. If you live in New Jersey, if you work in New Jersey, you had better live in New Jersey.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's a fact.
Right.
All over New Jersey, the police, the fire, the school teachers, by city laws and by New Jersey state law, live there. You can't live in Brooklyn and get a contract from, say, Newark or Bergen County to come clean their streets. It's not happening. All I'm asking, given the multi-millions of dollars, and by some estimates, over $2 trillion is generated in New York City every year, from Wall Street to the sports industry to the diamond industry, you name it. My argument is not with New Jersey. New Jersey is supposed to protect New Jersey. Long Island is supposed to protect Long Island. My beef is directly with the mayor of New York City, who persists De Blasio today, his predecessors, Bloomberg, Giuliani, and all the rest.
Why isn't de Blasio doing something about it?
Because he just, I don't, the short answer is I don't know why he isn't doing it, but I do have a problem with him giving millions of dollars of New York City money to corporations in other cities and other states when New York City has about 650,000 people in New York City who have no jobs. I'm calling out the mayor here and now. He signed a contract within the past year to give approximately $800,000 of city money to a company in New Jersey that every day sends a water truck into New York City, pulls up to trees. I actually saw this several months ago. I saw a water truck pull up to a tree on 6th Avenue, Manhattan. A mechanical arm came out the side of the truck,
I've seen that truck,
turned around, and began to squirt water into the tree. I didn't realize what I was looking. As I drew close, I saw the writing on the side of the water truck, and it had an address of some company in New Jersey. So they get a contract, nearly $1 million, to pour water on New York City trees. Fine, the trees need water. No problem there. My problem is New York City has 650,000 people or more that have no jobs. The mayor of New York City has to explain why he's given a contract. You mean to tell me none of those people in New York City who have no jobs can pour water on the trees? So the question is, why is the mayor...
Where would you go to complain about that?
Well, you're starting right now on the television set so that you can educate people as to why New York City money is being sent to New Jersey. The second place you would go is to your elected officials. The third place you would go to is the Mayor de Blasio himself. Another place you would go to City Comptroller, New York City Public Advocate, Letitia James. City City officials have 650,000 people that we know about, is probably a lot more, that have no jobs. So the first order of business, the mayor of New York City took an oath, and he is under oath to protect New York City.
Right.
70% of the fire department lives in Long Island. That's a problem. Okay, no municipality that I'm aware
75%
of the 11,000 firefighters in the New York City Fire Department, approximately 70% of them live outside the city. You're the mayor of this city. You are under oath to protect New York City. So what I'm saying to you essentially is, if the mayor of New York City took city money, just city money alone, and seeded it into the New York City economy by giving jobs to city residents and giving contracts to New York City residents, well, who's unemployed? Over 80% of the people in New York City who have no jobs are black or brown. So by default, if city jobs go to city residents, black people's economic standing begins to improve. This is the one time I say to people, don't use the race card. Don't say give jobs to black people. I suggest that you use the word city resident. By default, that is black people. Most white people in New York City have jobs. So if I'm the mayor, I'm not going to give a job to a white person because they already have jobs. Very few white people in New York City are unemployed. So if you're talking about benefiting New York City, you're benefiting its people who are Latino and black have no jobs. Major issue.
You know the Gateway Mall in Brooklyn?
I do.
When that project was on the table, my church was involved, and we were in meetings with the Army Corps of Engineers, because it's along the edge there, the approach to Jamaica Bay. And at the meeting, we had people from Nassau County come to the meeting with the Army Corps of Engineers protesting the construction of the Gateway Mall in Brooklyn, right on the Belt Parkway, saying that, oh, it's going to endanger the birds and the raccoons and the pheasant and the squirrel. What it was about was this. These people represented the merchants in Green Acres. Green Acres Shopping Mall which is in Valley Stream, just over the Nassau County line. You can walk from Queens to Green Acres.
Yes, you can.
And the buses from Jamaica go to Green Acres. Right? So what they wanted, they didn't want the mall built in Brooklyn on the Belt Parkway, because all of the people that come from Brooklyn to shop in Green Acres would stop coming to Green Acres and they'd go to the Gateway Mall. Well, that's what has happened. But these were people from Long Island trying to stop a construction project in Brooklyn, which was benefiting the city of New York, the residents of New York, and they have doubled the size of that mall. Most recently, last year, they doubled the size of the mall, and it's provided thousands of jobs for people and brought millions of dollars of revenue into the city. So conversely, the people of Nassau County were looking out for themselves in trying to stop a project in New York City, while New York City fails to look after its own and has the money running out to Long Island.
All right. Yeah. I'd like to spend the last few minutes talking about another injustice here in the city. A lot of people call Staten Island a part of New Jersey. It's not part of New York. But I think they're probably waving the Confederate flag in Staten Island, as far as I'm concerned, because of this Eric Gardner case. I just want to play, and I want to remind everybody what happened here. A year ago, this weekend.
This weekend.
Yes.
We're having a rally
Saturday.
at NAN this weekend. Anybody like to participate? We're going out to Brooklyn to protest. You know, there's a settlement made yesterday, and I have it on videotape. I'll bring it next week. But I just want to remind everybody and let you see actually what happened. I just want to remind you what happened. Now, remember, this is over Lucy cigarettes.
Yes.
Lucy cigarettes, mind you. All right? This man, a family of 6. All right, just play the Eric Gardner piece. Those of you who have seen it before, you'll remember this.
My business. Them fight break guys stop.
Yes.
Don't say you can run up on me.
That's all right.
The people that's fighting just don't walk away. Are you serious? I didn't do nothing. Where did I go?
Then before
I have my ID on me. Take me back for what? I didn't sell anything. I did nothing. We sitting here the whole time, minding our business. What are you talking about? Who else you do what? Who else sell cigarettes to? To whom?
Not that rich. There's another guy.
Easy way or hard way for what? Every time you see me, you want to mess with me. I'm tired of it. It stops today.
This guy right here is forcibly trying to lock somebody up for breaking up a fight.
Everybody standing here, they told me I didn't do nothing. I did not sell nothing. Because every time you see me, you want to harass me, you want to stop me, trying to sell cigarettes. I'm minding my business, officer. I'm minding my business. Please just leave me alone. I told you the last time, please just leave me alone. Please, don't touch me. Don't touch me.
Hold on.
Don't touch me, please. Do not touch me.
Put your hand behind your back.
I can't breathe. 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 I can't breathe.
Once again, police beating up on people.
Back
Look
up.
right here.
Back up and get on that step.
Okay.
Back up.
All he did was break up a fight. And this is what happens for breaking up a fight. This crazy.
Everybody back up, back up.
Something's wrong with him.
He can't breathe. Look, now I mean, they gave this man a seizure.
Yo, move out the way. Yo.
It's my brother, we live here.
Back up this way. Everybody now back up. It's now going to become a crisis. Back it up. Back it up.
I'm going to my house.
No. This way. Let's go.
Can't go in my
In the house or that way?
All right, I'll go that way.
Pick a choice.
I'm getting my
Let's
bike.
go. You had your chance to get your bike, sir. Staying over there. Right now we have a scene.
He's alright. He's doing what to do with the fight. That's something to do with something else.
Now you see this last person you saw in the green. Now you see that he was standing there all the time, waiting for his backup to come. Now this is over Lucy's cigarettes, but there's a history between the guy in the green and Eric Gardner. They had a beef once before, and Eric had put in a complaint against Patello.
Pantaleo.
Pantaleo. And matter of fact, he had a couple other charges against him.
Yeah.
Yes.
But this is a group attack, and you actually watched a murder, okay? Now, that was a murder in the streets of New York, questionably Staten Island being a part of New York, but we actually watched a man being killed. all right, by a police officer over what? Lucy's cigarettes. Now, Detective Graham, how serious is this reaction? I mean, what is this? What are we
There's a couple
looking
things
at?
we got to remember. You have a DA who refused to do his job because we now, remember, let's go back 20-something years to Rodney King, over 20 years, 30 years ago to Rodney King. There was video there, and they were telling you you weren't seeing what you were seeing.
But he tried to escape.
And now,
and
well, they
was
said
running.
he wouldn't stay down, like he was Mighty Joe Young and they were
But
afraid.
this is over Lucy's
But this is
cigarettes.
the point,
It's
regardless
over
of what
Lucy's
is over,
cigarettes.
let me finish the point that we are watching a man being murdered, and the DA says no true bill. He says there's nothing here to justify bringing charges against the officers. Now, there are about 6 officers involved here. It's not just Pantaleo. It's the whole group of them acting in concert.
Right.
You have a bogus DA.
Right.
You had a crooked congressman in that district.
Right.
Who was a former, what was it, Green Beret or former FBI agent, I can't remember. He was indicted.
Bring it out. Bring it out. Staten Island's over.
Then you have, as he leaves office, Donovan comes with no true bill against these cops, and Donovan moves to take the post of the crooked politician who was in Congress. Right? And this is the way to get votes. This is the way to get votes in Staten Island. When the U.S. Attorney's Office...
Yeah, I say, interrupt you, but how can they get away with this? I mean, they're not going to get away with it.
Well, we have to wait and see what the U.S. Attorney's Office
something like, it's got to be done. This is on tape.
We know
Nobody
that.
can look at this and sit when they're right conscious and let this get away with. Let them get away with it.
We said they wouldn't get away with it with Sean Bell. We said they wouldn't get away with it with Amadou Diallo.
This is different. This is it was completely different. This is different. This is over Lucy cigarettes.
You do not have in the city a district attorney that will do what should be done. You have to wait until the feds come in. And in every case, the feds do not pursue the matter.
Well,
there are suits that have been filed that the feds have not followed up on. We have to wait and see what Loretta Lynch is going to do.
This and Charleston and a lot of other stuff.
Brooklyn DA, not Hines, not that bum.
Thompson?
Help me. Thompson.
Yeah.
Ken Thompson.
Oh, Ken
He's the only DA in New York City right now that's doing his job, as far as I can see. All right? He's undoing.
What about the special prosecutor that we just got?
Well, that's coming from the governor. All right? So Eric Snyderman will appoint somebody, and that is something we had asked for and fought for.
But we got it now.
Over 15 years ago. So now it has come full course.
So what's he going to do about Staten Island?
Well, we're going to have to see what he's going to do. But you got to remember, there was no indictment. There was no indictment. So now you have to wait for the feds.
All right.
Because the DA represents the state of New York. So we have to wait and see what Loretta Lynch is, Loretta, right?
Yes.
Loretta, what she's going to do as the United States Attorney General.
All right. Well, the family settled the case yesterday, and all power to them. They've been grieving, and they're a loving family. I've gotten to know them personally, and all power to them. It's their business what they want to do with that. And I don't think any of us have too much to say about it. I mean, it's their doing. I mean, I wouldn't want to sit around and worry about this for the next 10, 15 years. Or,
the only problem is that for all the people who've been murdered in this town by the police, how is it that the feds have not come in here to monitor NYPD?
What's going to happen now?
All right? That's a good question. Nothing that I know.
It's going to happen now.
I don't.
I think this is the straw that broke the camel's back.
I'm
over Lucy cigarettes, mind you.
Yeah, and speaking of Lucy cigarettes, billions of dollars in New York City is spent on tobacco. So I would say to people that they have the power they have is in their hands, in their ability to vote, but also where they choose to spend their money.
Right.
Whether we're talking about city contracts that elected officials sent out of New York City, where people spend their money, whether it's in restaurants, it's with corporations who don't stand up for the people, who don't hire the people. People need to watch very carefully where they spend their money. Here's a $5 million settlement that is justifiably given to the Garner family.
5.9.
But 5.9, correct. But the citizens of the city need to realize that's $5.9 million that was taken from perhaps the Board of Education. That's less money that's going to be for services.
That's your tax dollars.
That's your tax money. The city needs to get angry and rise up and ask questions. It can't be the same people over and over again complaining. There are 8.5 million people in New York City. It's the same civil rights activists, the same community organizers, the same retired policemen, the same union people all the time that are complaining. In a city of 8.5 million people, if the people picked a day and they didn't spend their money in one store, or picked a week and they didn't spend it in an entire group of stores, people would sit up and take notice. Why is money not being spent? So I think one of the great liberators is people's bank accounts and where they choose to spend their money at.
Amen.
You know, the New York City Police Department cost you and me $1 billion in lawsuits.
Right.
Cost us over $1 billion in lawsuits over the last 10, 11 years.
So when do we want to wake
So
up to this?
When you have an agency that is costing the city more money in litigation than any other agency of the hundreds of agencies in the city, that one agency is costing the city more money than any agency, there's something wrong. And you have 3 officers, black sergeant, black detective, 1 white detective. Between the 3 of them, there are 92 lawsuits pending against the city of New York. Those 3. How could you work for an agency and the 3 of you are responsible for 92 lawsuits? You should have been fired long time ago.
You said 2 black and 1 white?
2 black, 1 white. Should have been fired a long time ago.
See, it's important to understand that because you criticize, in this case, the police, that doesn't make you anti-cop.
No.
You have a child. Your child doesn't do what they should do. You may give them a little punishment, maybe a little spanking, but you spank your child, you discipline your child because you love your child and you want the child to do better. I reject the notion that if you criticize NYPD or any other city agency, that somehow you're anti-cop, there's something wrong with you. And that is the people who want to steer you away from the conversation about change. So they'll paint you as anti-police, there's something bad about you, you didn't pay your taxes, or you know, try to dig up some dirt on you to try to change the conversation. The conversation is where there's a mistake. I'll be the first to readily agree. Most of the police do good work and we're a better community because they do.
Right.
But Eric Garner is not dead because of the entire police department. He's dead because of a handful of officers
That's
did
right.
what they did. So anyone who's listening to this and thinks that they'll be branded anti-cop, they need to understand that you are pro-police when you're for good policing and you're against bad policing. Doesn't mean that you're against all of the officers. And that when the police department...
We have to close with this.
Yes.
This Saturday, 106 West 145th Street, you can meet me at National Action Network. We're going to go out and protest about Eric Garner, the injustice. And we'll start there. And further programs, we'll see a lot of this stuff, all right? The God in me loves the God in you, and stay tuned. Peace, power to the people.
Also, condolences to the family of Reverend Clarence Norman Sr., who passed last Saturday, the pastor of First Baptist of Crown Heights.